Good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains, episode number 1033 for the third day of November 2025. Wow, 'tis the season. So, this is the pre show. For those that don't know, this is the magical part of the program where we typically share three things: boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we see outrageous things. If you're looking for the actual show content, move the slider up about 9 minutes, and you'll get the actual start of the produced show that goes out to the world on audio. And at about 75% of our people listen to the show, 25% watch. And if you watch or listen, we're just glad you're here. But the only people that see this, those are the ones that watch, because we don't feed this down the audio produced podcast. But in January, just a couple of months away, we celebrate 20 years of Weather Brains. 20 years. We started this show in January of '06. Who'd have thunk it? But we're still here, believe it or not. And let's start to bring our regulars and our guests on here. I know that we've got Jen, who is out this week. She is traveling. She is moving to her next destination. And I know that Rick Smith is not with us tonight. Rick's a little under the weather, but I think everybody else is going to be here this evening. See, Bill Murray is along with us. You talking to me, Bill? I can't hear a word you're saying.
I didn't say anything. I was just saluting
Oh,
you, Dr. Span.
okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Hey,
I
Tom.
couldn't tell what kind of a hand gesture that was.
It's a
Let's see.
salute, sir.
Okay.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Can you hear us okay, Tom?
Yeah, no problems.
Good.
So, Tom, where are you calling from? Where are you at?
The Woodlands, Texas, right outside Houston.
Houston. Tom, you ever been to Dallas, Fort Worth?
I have. One of my kids lives up there.
Okay. I used to do the weather in Dallas, Fort Worth. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte. And you're in Houston. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that'll work. Thanks for giving us the time. Hopefully this won't go down the tubes. Most of our guests hang up on us about when they realize how bad this show is, they hang up on us. So hopefully you
No
won't do
guest
that.
has ever hung up on us in 20 years.
Well,
Not one single time.
well, not on
Yes.
purpose. Not on purpose.
Yeah, a couple of times they developed internet problems.
Yeah.
Like, where is
Yeah,
that cord?
I was worried about.
They
I was worried
went
about
away
that earlier.
No,
What are you drinking there? We're trying to figure out what Tom is drinking. That's the next question we have.
It's a Spindrift.
I'm not a hipster. I don't know what that is.
You are a hipster.
Flavored carbonated water.
Is that a grapefruit flavor?
Okay.
I don't know what
Sounds
this
really
is.
good.
Yeah, I think it is.
That
No,
sounds like something
lemonade.
John Gordon would drink.
Pink lemonade.
Oh, pink lemonade.
That tells you how flavorful it is. If I can't really identify it.
Did they drink that in Ireland, John Gordon?
Never saw that. But I never saw green beer either. I was searching for the Chicago green beer, but it was not there.
I bet you saw lots of Irish whiskey.
I did. How y'all doing
Infused
tonight?
Irish whiskey. Good.
We missed you last week, Bill. We missed you.
I know it's been a kind of a crazy couple of weeks. We've got a little health issue in the family we're dealing with and working
Sorry to hear
through.
that.
So
Okay.
we'll be resolving that over the next few weeks. So
Hi, Tom. Welcome.
Thank you. So where do you sit, John?
I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky. I was with the Weather Service for a long time, and I got to fly hurricanes for a while.
Okay.
It's a great group. James has got the all-star team. The only thing we're missing is him to pick at the SEC on ESPN. I'm hoping he can be the pickmeister. Game day,
I
excuse
know.
me.
I was on SEC Nation and I went 3 for 3. Did you see, Bill, the video they put up on the Alabama Weather Network Facebook page?
No, I did. I haven't
I
seen
gotta
that
see
yet.
it.
I
You're
just,
3 for 3.
I saw it live, so I didn't worry about watching any reconstituted videos. Was
No,
it
no,
good?
what they did. So I don't know who did it, but they got my picks and then they flashed up the little, put a ding on there and put the actual score of the game. These were hard games. I had to pick.
Yeah,
I had to
you
pick
did not shy away at all from the tough
LSU
games.
Vandy. LSU Vandy was hard. I had Georgia Ole Miss, and that was hard. And then I had Alabama Tennessee, and that was hard. But so maybe if
Did you
they
have
see
to?
my
I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
oh
as opposed to the picker they got, it was some crazy guy.
well,
Did you
what
have
they
to pick
normally
with
do,
the
they get
spread or not with the spread? No spread or
no
spread?
spread, no
No spread,
spread,
straight
no
up,
no. I'm just
James.
picking the winner. I mean,
You,
so
you need to
and what they
get
do,
in on
they'll
that $500,000 kick. You need to forget the spread stuff. You need to get on real game day and kick the 30-yard field goal for the half a
Yeah, you think
million.
you could do that, James? Could you kick that field goal?
I'm strong as an ox. I could kick a
I know.
50-yard field goal. I mean,
Oh,
come on. So no, but what they do on ESPN Game Day, so they'll get these guys, and most of them are stoned, and they don't even know where they are. They don't care about these games, and hey man, yeah, and they don't even care. I would come in there with analytics and again, I just think they need to get me one time. Just give me one chance. Give me one chance on Game Day, and let's see how it
Vote
works
for you.
out. So
You're my
Reese
vote.
Davis.
well,
Thank
you
you,
would think
John.
Reese
Reese
could pull it
Davis.
off. You would think Reese could make that happen.
So Reese, if you're watching this, Coach Saban's for me, and if I can get Reese on my side, then we'll, I think I have a chance at it. Uh, so, Reese and I are like together in this Hall of Fame thing. You could go through this Hall of Fame exhibit at Reese Pfeiffer Hall, and there's Reese Davis, and there's me, and he won't even get me on his show. I'm just emotionally crushed. And he said, the reason he said he didn't pick me because I'm not funny. And I'm probably not as
You can
funny
be
as
funny.
the stoner guy. I'm not as funny as the stoner guys they get on
He
there,
wasn't
but
funny either. I hate to
well,
tell him.
I've
Now
heard
Nate
that,
Bargatze was funny in Vandy at Natural. He's funny, but
You always
but
make
I
me
told
laugh. Always.
I told a good friend that knows Theo Vaughn. Did you tell Vaughn I want to be on his show, get on his podcast? Just I want to be a guest, and let's give me an hour. And let's let the world decide who's funny. If it's Theo or me or both or maybe none of us, I don't know. But anyway, that's my rant for the week here.
well, you
Sorry.
did a great job. And you and Feinbaum were funny together. I think Laura Rutledge about had a stroke.
No, she had Captain Crunch eyes. So she had this really nice professional anchor, that was up there, and she was reading her script, and me and Feinbaum just went totally unhinged, and her eyeballs got twice as big as they were when we started. Like, what are you guys doing? And we ran through all the time cues. We had 2 IFBs, one in each ear from 2 different people, and we just ran through all the time cues. It was classic, unhinged, pre-show type material here, so it was good.
Did you supply
But go
Feinbaum with his suspenders, or did he bring his own?
No, he did. I didn't know he was going to do that. He did that on his own. But go follow Alabama Weather Network on Facebook or TikTok or any of the platforms and watch the video they put up there today. It was good. I think Ryan put that together, but it was good.
Yeah,
So,
that's really good.
and let's see, Tom, just a fair warning to you. We are streaming this live on YouTube, and at the top of the hour here in 30 seconds, we join a local television group here. So we'll be streaming live, and most people listen. About 75% of the audience, they listen to the produced audio podcast that's out tomorrow morning, but we do have people that are watching live. Now, not that you would say anything inappropriate. That's mainly for me. I need to remind myself of that.
All right.
We're not showing up on one of the major WMVPs right now. Have they worked that out, Stan? Get to work on that. When are they going to fix this? I'm having to search for my basketball games.
So we are off. The station that for those that don't know, I still work for a local station part time, and they are off YouTube TV because of a dispute with Disney and ABC and ESPN and all those properties. And so we are. And listen, I've been through a gazillion of these over the years, but it's the whole thing. It's like healthcare. The healthcare business needs to be nuked and paved. The television business model or the video, let me rephrase that, the video distribution model needs to be nuked and paved. And speaking of that, welcome to our television viewers here at the top of the hour. Yes. But listen, every business changes. Every business changes, and you have to be able to keep up with the changes, and hopefully they'll get that resolved. What we did, I went ahead and signed up for ESPN Unlimited with their package with Hulu and Disney Plus, and I looked, and as it turned out, we were subscribers to ESPN Plus and Hulu, and so really it's a wash for us. It is no difference in the monthly, payment by doing that because we killed the old Hulu thing we were paying for and the old ESPN Plus. But enough
and you
of
get
TV
Disney on top of it. Yeah. Same thing for me.
So
same thing for me.
So anyway, it worked. All right, let's get this thing started here. I think the gang is all here. Track 1 and track 2 are recording, and here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
WeatherBrains, episode number 1033. 1033. This is for the 3rd of November, 2025. Glad you're here. Man, this year is flying by. But goodness, we've had some cold nights here. So let's, I think Troy's on the show tonight. I see Troy down in Austin. Troy, have you managed a high under 90 yet?
Well, yeah, about 89. But
hey,
never. No, we have cooled down. It's like 60 here right now, so it's been very pleasant. We've been seeing lows in the 40s, but we'll warm back close to 90. A little ridge reestablishes by the middle and latter part of the week, and so ahead of another cold front over the weekend. But we'll get the upper 80s around 90 once we get, I think, to maybe Friday and Saturday.
Awesome. Got a couple of spots here at this low latitude location in the 20s this morning.
Really?
It's been pretty crisp, and it sure looks like a really good little flush of very cold air about a week away, which should get most folks at or below freezing by Tuesday morning of next week. So we'll certainly take that. But so we don't have Jen on the show. She is in the process of moving to her next destination. But I do see the legendary John Gordon, the man with a big heart. He's a man of integrity, a man with passion, the man that cares.
And the spokesman for Aer Lingus. Yeah.
And the spokesman for Aer Lingus. Yes. So, John, what are your comments on the airline travel situation in Houston right now?
It's really good to see, and I'm so delighted that my friend Troy is here tonight, and he was not at IAH today. IAH, it was a disaster. Okay,
how bad was it? How bad was it?
I would think this would be maximum hemorrhoid outage.
No, it's
not good.
Really, really bad.
I have to fly
3 to 4 hours. And
besides
that, in Houston, John, you could not United in one of the terminals you could check in at, but then you had to leave that terminal to go to another one to go through a TSA checkpoint. And if you've been through Houston, in other words, you could check in at United here in this terminal, but there was no TSA checkpoint there. My forecast, which I feel like this will happen, is we're going to get, because of the air traffic situation this week, mass pain. And I believe that the situation will be remedied in the next 4 or 5 days. And it's going to be at the pain of a lot of people. That's going to happen.
Good luck, Bill Murray.
Yeah. Where are you flying through, Bill? Bill, where are you going to?
It's all direct, Birmingham to Reagan, but I'm sure it's no fun there.
Yeah, you won't probably have that much problem in Birmingham, but even here in Austin, we've had ground delays. I don't want to speak for them officially because the air traffic manager is a friend of mine, but what 40% below staffing here in Austin in the Tracon and the tower.
Yeah, if I
40%.
had more time, I'd take the Amtrak, but I got to get back because we've got a bunch of important appointments on Thursday.
But do y'all would kind of agree with me that this week's probably going to be mass pain? It's going to break this week, and there are going to be a lot of angry people. And watch people in Congress begin to jump off the rat-infested boat at that point. There are going to be some people very angry.
And let me confirm what I heard here. I heard John Gordon say maximum hemorrhoid outage. Did I hear that?
Yes,
I think
that's
that
the show title.
The leader in the clubhouse.
I'm just saying we have a show title for this week.
Yep.
I feel sorry for these folks.
Dude, no, but yours is the best
I
one.
feel sorry for them.
Nuked and Paved is another good one. So
Yeah, that one got in under the wire. I don't know if that made it onto the live version or not.
Just real quick, just picture this. Picture TSA sick out.
Yep.
Picture ATC sick out, and then picture severe weather at a big hub.
Yeah.
What do you think might happen, James Adeldot?
Oh.
Well, I will tell you now that the word is already going around that this will be ended by an FAA surprise.
Well, let's go to our pilot of the group here, James Adelot. What are your comments on all this?
You got to have a certain number of people to staff these positions.
Yep.
And once the noise gets strong enough, action will be taken.
It will, at the great pain of a lot of people who vote.
Yep. You don't get the crossing gate at the railroad crossing until somebody gets wiped out.
Yep.
Target of timing of opportunity.
Well, let's shift over from aviation brains to football brains. James, that was a good win for OU against Tennessee Saturday night. Wow, that was not bad.
Man, did you see that kicker? Man, he wears short
what kind
shorts.
Of Daisy Duke shorts were those? I mean, that looked like something you. Never mind. I'll be very careful. You just don't see them that often.
What is this we're talking about? I missed this.
Go check it out, Bill. You got to see this.
Oh
kicker.
boy!
It was amazing. And he said in the post-game interview, now he can't change. So expect more.
Was he not wearing a typical football uniform?
Oh,
they were like mid-thigh.
Okay. They weren't. Those things were more upper thighs, don't you think?
Then we had a 68-yard field goal in the NFL last night.
No, kid from Oklahoma.
I say more power. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I guess he feels liberated.
His football boxer briefs.
He forgot to put on his pants.
I'll say the guy's confident in his manhood. I mean, that's all I can say there. I mean, how do we lose control of this show so early?
No, but Tom is not
sorry,
going
Tom.
to hang out and put up with this.
Tom is really thinking about hanging up and running right now. We have a commissioner. We have a mature commissioner standing by to bring this session back into control. Kim, I apologize. I'm so sorry that you had to be involved in this.
When did they start wearing? I've noticed more and more that. When did they start wearing shorts, lad? I figured they'd need more protection.
One of the linebackers had shorts on. Yeah, one of the linebackers had shorts on like that too. I'm going to cut all my suits off like that because I think that's a snazzy look.
I'm leaving, y'all. Good night.
Kim, please bail us out.
Yeah,
well, I can't promise to do that, but I can ask the question. I mean, wasn't this like a thing in the 80s that was tried with suits and with football uniforms? But at least for sure with
Don't
suits.
remember that.
There was there if you Google the fashion catalogs, go to the Googles, there was definitely some time period where it was experimented with. It was summarily left in the dust, but if you're a kicker, all that matters is your comfort. I'm sorry. Like it's a total head game. It's still a head game. So if they want to wear little short shorts, they want to wear bikini bottoms. I mean, I'm not going to be.
I think that's what he's doing.
There was a day when we had barefoot
segment of the audience that's now watching because of Taylor Swift that is not sad. I'm just going to put that out there about this.
And you know what? He's now a front runner for the Theismann Award.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Congratulations, James. Yeah.
James will be here till midnight.
He said
got
that
a
out
million of
loud.
them.
That didn't even make it to the chat.
Wow.
Oh,
Goodness. Bill, bring in our guest before he totally runs.
Oh goodness, yeah, he put himself up to this, so he's a glutton for punishment. Tonight's guest, WeatherBrain, is a meteorologist and a trader specializing in weather risk management. Currently with Munich Ray Trading. His career spans the National Weather Service energy trading and weather derivatives, combining forecasting expertise with financial market insight. Tom Paylor, thank you for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
we're so thrilled to have you. So take us back. We usually ask our friends, what got them into weather, but you kind of came at this sort of through the back door. Talk about your childhood and
Yeah,
how you
sure.
got to college and into geography and how that morphed into a career in weather.
Sure. So, I kind of have the same story that most meteorologists have. I was interested in it from a really young age. I gave a report on tornadoes to my kindergarten class. It was just plagiarized exactly from the World Book Encyclopedia, word for word. And I
That's
just
the way
went
you
in
do it.
and read it and read it to the class. And I was always excited when there were tornado warnings and things. And I grew up a UNC Tar Heel fan, so I knew I was going to go to Carolina for college, but they didn't have a meteorology program. So, as I got into high school and started applying to places, I did apply to NC State, which had a program, but basically my whole family except one of my brothers went to Carolina, and he went to State. So went to Carolina, decided to be a business major. My dad had a good friend that he played golf with that was a weather service forecaster in Charlotte. That this was in the late 80s, around 1990. And there was actually, talking about the government budget problems and hiring freezes and things. There was a hiring freeze on at that time. And my dad said, "Hey, my son's interested in meteorology. What would you recommend him doing?" And the guy said, "Look, there is no way that your son should go into meteorology. There's going to be cutbacks in the government going forward. He's never going to be able to get a job." So a year or two after that, actually, that guy dropped dead on the 14th green at the golf course, but that's another story. I think, one of the things that guy had mentioned was shift work being bad. And so I kind of, shied away from becoming a meteorologist at that point. And I got a couple years into college and took one of those kind of soul finding trips out west. I lived in a buddy with a car inside a car, basically for 57 days, driving all over the place. And before I took that trip, one of my sisters said, "You should really think about doing meteorology." Dad always hated his job. My dad was a freight salesman for a trucking company, and he hated going to work. And my sister said, "Hey, you need to do something you like. So you need to really think about that." So I went on that trip between sophomore and junior year of college and came back and said, "All right, I got to figure out how to do meteorology somehow." But I was far enough along where, I couldn't just change schools. I didn't really want to do that. Plus my parents weren't too hip on paying for it if I changed places. So halfway through junior year, I started researching, okay, what do I got to do to get in grad school in meteorology? What classes do I have to take? And found out I was like, okay, I got to take 3 calculuses. I'd only had 1 calculus for business school. I got to take 3 physics classes, and I got to take a differential equation class. And I have to do this in a year and a half in a summer. So, for anybody listening that's kind of interested in doing meteorology, that's a kid, you've got to be good at math and you've got to be good at physics if you want to get a degree. So I decided after fall semester of junior year, I said, I'm going to go into meteorology in grad school. I've got these 2 geography classes I've taken, so I've only got to take 5 classes to get a geography degree. So geography was an easy major. So I took those 5 classes to get the major, and then took all the math and physics electives. And I was pretty good at math, and I got through those classes okay, not without some fright, I would say, but it was enough to get me to be able to apply to grad school. And I did really good on the GRE test, which is like the SAT basically for grad school. And I had it narrowed down to Penn State, OU, and Florida State. And kind of when I was in this process, really before it started, was Hurricane Hugo in 1989. Hit South Carolina and came inland and basically tore up our backyard in Charlotte. We lost a lot of pine trees and things. And at that point, I got really interested in hurricanes. So when it came to applying to grad school and I got in those places, I decided, okay, I want to go to FSU. I think they got a really good department in tropical meteorology. So I ended up working for an old Indian guy named T.N. Krishnamurti, he's pretty well known. He went to the Chicago School of Meteorology. He published hundreds of papers. Basically, probably a third of the Hurricane Center has worked for him. Back in the 90s, he was the major professor for a lot of guys and ladies that worked at the Hurricane Center. He was a big modeler, right? He was very big on numerical modeling. He developed the FSU Super Ensemble forecast model, which I'll talk more about later, that kind of plays into my career. So I went to school. I got a fellowship from the U.S. Navy, where they basically paid everything, and I got a stipend, and it was great. But I had to work on research for them that was numerical modeling, and I didn't really like that. And the first year of grad school was 1992, and actually, the first month of grad school was Hurricane Andrew. So, kind of peaked in the weather excitement pretty quickly going into grad school, and Andrew hit, and I got more interested in tropical meteorology at that point. And I thought, man, I want to run the Hurricane Center at one point. That's what my career goal is. And then at some point I visited Miami, and I'm like, there's no way in heck I'm living in Miami. So I'm going to figure out something else to do. But we had, as coming in as a geography major into a meteorology program, it was difficult for me, especially the first semester, because you're in there with all these guys people had majored in meteorology undergrad, or they were physics. So it was a lot easier for them, right? I really had to struggle that first semester, and I got it. I got it where I did fine. And but we had to take all the undergrad classes. And one thing I remember, the other big weather thing that happened my first year was the storm of the century in March of '93. And we had an atmospheric physics class. And I tell this story to people still because I think it's pretty funny. We had a couple guys in there. One of them works for NCEP still. I won't name his name. I don't want to embarrass him, but it's still a funny story. But these guys, on the weekend of the storm of the century, one of them decided he was going to drive from Tallahassee to Chattanooga to see a buddy. And the other was going to go to the North Carolina Outer Banks and take weather observations the whole way. And this guy was known for documenting everything in a notebook and so forth. So he went and took his anemometer, took his barometer, everything, and documented all these things going up the coast. Well, we had an atmospheric physics exam on that Monday after the storm of the century. And the guy in Chattanooga got 20 inches of snow and got snowed in the driveway. He couldn't drive back. And the guy got stuck in North Carolina. So both of them missed the exam. And the thing I remember is our professor gave both of those guys failing grades on the exam, because he said, if any meteorologist is stupid enough to do something like that, knowing that a big event like this is coming, you deserve to fail the exam. So both of those guys ended up, one of them almost kept him out of grad school, but they didn't get a retake or anything. So that was quite a thing. So as time went by in grad school with me in 1993, I kind of was sure I didn't want to do the modeling thing. And I know you guys have had Kevin Clazel on here as a guest before. It might have been years since you've had him, but he was a longtime professor at OU. But he started out as an assistant professor at Florida State. It was like his first job right out of Penn State. And I went to him because he was young and he was relatable. And I said, look, what do I do? This is not the place for me. And he goes, just give it a little bit more time. Something will come along. So I did give it a little more time. And one of my buddies that was in grad school was going to Alaska in the summer of 1993 to work for the Weather Service. They had an internship program where you could go up as a summer intern and they would hire you back full time. So he kind of came back and was like, man, it's awesome. You ought to think about that for next summer. So myself and another buddy a guy named Dan Cobb. We were both on the same fellowship. He's in the Weather Service now still. He was Grand Rapids MIC for a long time, and now he's got another position in the Weather Service. We decided we want to go to Alaska the next summer. So when they came around interviewing, we kind of had to interview in kind of a hidden way because Krishnamurti, our major professor, hated the Weather Service. He said it was all nonsense. He said this is not a forecasting lab. You guys are not doing forecasting. So we knew if we took that job, we were probably going to get whacked and thrown out of the lab. So they came around and interviewed, and we got offers from the Weather Service. And we went to another young professor, Jim Elsner, who's in the geography department at Florida State. That's kind of a hurricane researcher. He was in the meteorology department at the time, but he changed departments. And Elsner said he would pick us up if we got thrown out of the lab, in Krishnamurti's lab. So we went and saw Krishnamurti on the Friday before spring break in 1994 and said, hey, we're going to go to Alaska this summer. And he basically said, get your bleeping stuff and get out of the lab. So we moved our stuff out and went to Alaska that summer. I worked in the forecast office as a summer intern in Fairbanks. My first day in that office, my first experience in the Weather Service, I walk in and there's a shift change briefing. And I see a guy sitting in the chair chewing on a Kleenex with like 5 Kleenex laying on the desk in front of him. And I'm like, this is really weird. Is this like an Alaska thing? Is this a Weather Service thing? Like, what is going on? And after the briefing, the shift change briefing was done, I watched that guy and he went in and put all those Kleenex in the freezer. So it turns out that that's what that guy did. And he worked in that office in Fairbanks for like 40 years. And that was my first memory of the Weather Service. Another shift change when it was kind of the opposite shift change. One guy that was sitting at the desk had been sick and had his Kleenex there and was blowing his nose and left him there. And then that guy came in on the shift change and like, what do you think went in his mouth? Kleenex.
Oh, no. He had great immunity.
Wow.
So,
wow.
So yeah,
I've never been to my house. I've been there.
So that was kind of, the first thing. Now the meteorologist in charge in Fairbanks at the time, Ted Fathauer, he was very much on letting young people kind of do things that maybe were outside the lines a little bit. And I'd had a TV weather class at FSU the semester before. So I was interested in doing TV a little bit. So I went to him my first day and I said, hey, I noticed one of the affiliates in Fairbanks, which there's really only 2. And I think, one did the weather maybe. I got there the first day and that guy, I asked Fathauer, I said, hey, would you mind if I talk to the TV station and do the TV weather maybe on Saturdays if they'll let me? And he's like, sure. But he said, don't tell anybody. So I was like thinking, well, I'm on TV. People are going to know. If you're picking a job to like hide, that's probably not the one. Yeah. So it turns out I got on there. I got to do that. And I did the weather on there. And a TV station in Albany, Georgia, had an opening for a weekend guy paying $7.93 an hour in 1994. And I applied for that job when I was coming back and finishing my master's at FSU. So it worked out. I was up there on the weekends, and then I would go back to FSU and study for the comprehensive exams under Elsner. At the same time, I knew I had a full-time job offer back in Alaska because that's generally what they did. If you weren't some crazy person chewing on Kleenex, they would hire you. Well, I guess that doesn't really matter. But, if you could breathe, they would hire you back up there and you would either go to Nome or Fairbanks or Anchorage. You would go to Nome, Kodiak, or Valdez, and then they would pull you into a big office like Anchorage or Fairbanks or Juneau.
Tom, you ever go to Barrow?
I never went up to Barrow. I did drive up the Pipeline Road to north of the Brooks Range on the summer solstice, actually.
Yeah.
Which that was pretty cool, except for getting 2 flat tires.
Yeah, that office at Barrow, I was there a couple of times and just amazing. That old WSO.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I ended up getting, so they quit sending people to Barrow basically because it sucked so bad. Not that the other places were great, but I ended up getting, once I finished my master's, and I worked at that TV station, several more months, and I was like a news photographer 3 days a week, going out with reporters and stuff, which was kind of cool. But I went back, I took a full-time job, and they stationed me in Nome. So in June of 95, I drove from Florida to Anchorage for the second time. I'd driven from Tallahassee to Fairbanks the summer before that. And I put my car on a plane and my stuff, on a plane, and shipped it to Nome. And I flew to Nome.
You work for Jerry Steiger? Did you work for Jerry Steiger? All right.
And so I'll tell you about Steiger in a second. So, I fly up. Now, Nome's a little bit different than Barrow. Like, Barrow is 90+% native population. Yep. Nome is kind of 50% native, 50% white, I would say. And the population is only 3,500 or so. But it's, there's 3 roads that go out of Nome about 50 to 75 miles and just kind of end. You can't drive to Anchorage or Fairbanks or anything. You got to fly in or out of there. And so when I got there, it was middle of June, and we get off the plane, and it's 34 degrees, and it's a rain and snow mix. And I'm like thinking, wow, this is really something. And Steiger picks me up at the airport, and the first thing he says is, "Do you play softball?" And I said, "Yeah, I play softball." He said, "Good. We have a game at 7 tonight. You're playing with us." So we're out on the softball field with, low overcast, and it's spitting snow and rain. And we're playing on a mud field, basically, with rocks around us. I was thinking, man, this is really something. So he did a really good job of getting us integrated into the community. His wife was from there. So, and his wife's brother was actually the mayor of Nome. And may still be, and he's some kind of politician up there still, but he was very good about getting us, integrated in things. And, our office there was right on the runway of the airport. So, part of the job was to launch weather balloons there, and you had to walk probably like 200 meters down the runway to the instrument shelter. So, in wintertime, when it's 10 below zero, you want to make sure that balloon makes it. You don't want to have to do a relaunch because you have to go back down there. Like, our balloon release time was between 3 and 3:30 a.m. on the midnight shift. And I remember at the time that Beavis and Butthead on MTV came on like right at 3 a.m. So I was always trying to get that balloon launched like right at 3 a.m. so I could get back down there pretty quickly. And they I don't know what the NWS uses to launch the balloons with now, but we use hydrogen. We had a big hydrogen generator down there that could store like 3 or 4 balloon releases worth of hydrogen. And you had a weight that you hooked on to the balloon that would stop the flow of hydrogen once the balloon got a certain amount of lift on it. So whenever you were going on your midnight shift, you had to drive past that instrument shelter coming into the office. So when you were on a midnight shift, you're like, I can save time and not have to walk down the runway twice when it's 10 below zero, and fill the balloon and just let it keep filling, and that automatic shutoff valve will turn it off, right? Mm-hmm. So one guy on shift went and did that, and he forgot to put the automatic shutoff valve on, and so the balloon drained 4 balloons worth of hydrogen and filled up the entire shelter. So when he went back down there at 3 a.m., he couldn't even get in the door because the balloon had expanded with flammable hydrogen in a high static environment, right? So
what could go wrong there?
Yeah, he had to cut it with a knife and then sprint away from the building while it drained. So I did my year in Nome. It wasn't that bad. I mean, I had seasonal affective disorder a little bit. Like, the darkness really bothered me. So I did get Peace Corps applications where I was like, I got to go somewhere warm, and I can speak Spanish somewhat. So I'm going to try to get in the Peace Corps so I don't have to pay my move back to the government. But over Christmas, I was in Anchorage for a weekend, or a Monday night, I guess. And they had a giveaway for a Pro Bowl trip at a bar. So they would, they would draw names out. They'd put your name in there and they would draw the name out. And they had a weekly winner that you won, like a football or something stupid. And then they would put all the weekly winners back in there for the Pro Bowl trip at the end of the year. Well, I was in there on the last Monday night game of the year around Christmas and put my name in there, and they drew out the weekly winner, and they said, "Oh, the winner's Tom Paler." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And they gave me the football prize or whatever. And then they said, "Now we're going to draw the overall winner." And the guy put all the names back in the hat and drew the name out and started laughing. And I knew immediately I'd won because he called my name like 10 seconds before that. So I won a trip to the Pro Bowl, which got me out of there in late January or early February. So that kind of saved me. And it was getting lighter by then. And we played a lot of basketball living up there. I was the Nome City League Player of the Year in 1995, so I'm real proud of that fact. that was my big accomplishment there. So then I got out of there in April and went to Anchorage and worked in the forecast office there about 2.5 years. Part of that role was they have an Alaska weather show. I don't know if you've ever had anybody that's done that show on here, but that's like a great thing. I mean, it goes out to all the little villages all over the state. The Weather Service, works in conjunction with the public television network up there. So that's like there was a guy named Reuben Eaton in the 90s that did that, and he was famous. He had whatever hair I have, he had the opposite hair. He had like huge hair, a ponytail all the way down his back. He had a huge mustache. Everybody loved that guy, right? And he was never going to leave that job. And then they created a weekend job for that, where you do it on Saturdays and Sundays and then work shifts and whatnot the rest of the time. So I ended up getting that weekend job. And I was like, there's no way that the Weather Service there's no way that Reuben is going to leave this job, right? He's 45. And so the Weather Service had their mass vacancy announcements when they spun up all the offices in the 90s. And I applied and got into Tampa, Florida. Reuben actually passed away like shortly thereafter. He ended up having he had a glioblastoma and went downhill like really quick, which is really sad. They still kept the show going after that, and still goes like on today. The Tampa forecast office, I was there a little over a year. I got married during that time. I hated shift work. Shift work was the worst thing. And I was awful, trying to stay awake on midnight shifts and so forth. I didn't like that at all. Also wasn't very good at the radar. I'm red, green colorblind. So like people could have died probably if I'd stayed doing that, even with the color blindness scales. I didn't really like working radar. I hated shift. So I ended up applying for a job at Weather Service headquarters in 99. I got that job. I was the youngest guy at headquarters, basically. There was a lot of old dudes like I am now that were there. But it was a good thing to be there because I'd come in from the field, and there's a lot, some of you guys have Weather Service experience and certainly have dealt with headquarters. It's a difficult thing. They don't really care about the field. And I kind of felt like I fit in that role. So time went on, and I was there about a year, and I was watching football game. I remember Penn State was playing, and they had a ad on the halftime show showing a trading floor, like an energy trading floor. It was for Williams Energy in Tulsa. And I thought, that looks like a pretty cool place to work. And a guy named Lance Wood that I'd known in the Weather Service, that he was a longtime Sioux in Houston and just retired fairly recently. Lance had taken a job at Duke Energy at a place that was kind of like Williams. So I went up at halftime of the football game and got on the internet and saw that they had a meteorologist job available at Williams. So I was like, wow, what are the odds in this? That place looks cool. I kind of want out of the government. I'm going to apply for this, and I'm not going to tell my wife about it. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to get it. So I applied for it. And then they called back in a week or two and said, hey, we want you to come out for an interview. So I told my wife, I said, hey, I applied for this job, and they're wanting me to come out to Tulsa for an interview. Do you care if I go? And she's like, no, that's fine. Go ahead and go out there. So the Lance Wood guy that had the job in the industry told me everything to say in the interview. He's like, this is what they want to hear. They want to hear that you can predict the Weather Service 6 to 10 day forecast and the 8 to 14 day, and that hurricanes because you worked in the Tampa office, and et cetera. So I did that, and they ended up making me a job offer. So that was in December of 2000. It was when natural gas was $10 for the first time. It was the California energy crisis. A lot of things were kind of happening, and I ended up getting the offer and talked to my wife that time wisely and took the job. And she was a nurse, and she went in and gave her 2 weeks at the hospital on a Monday. I went in and gave my 2 weeks for the government and filled out whatever paperwork I had to fill out that said I was leaving and so forth. And I went home that night, and there is some Discovery Channel special on the Oklahoma City tornado. And my wife starts crying and saying, there's no way in heck we're going out there to that place. You got to we are not going to Oklahoma. So I walked her down from the ledge because I was like, look, we quit already. Like, this is done. So we went out there, and it was during the Enron boom, 2000. Gas, like I said, was $10. And then Enron busted about 18 months or a year, 18 months after that. And you had 9/11 happen shortly thereafter. So my first day of work was in January 2001. And, the 9/11 had a lot to do with the financial markets, obviously. And we could see the writing on the wall. They were going to have layoffs there. I got laid off, but I had a job in Raleigh already set up at another utility that I got laid off from 4 months after that. And then kind of the evolution to like my career now started at that point. A number of buddies from Krishnamurti's lab in grad school started a weather company called Weather Predict with funding from a reinsurance company called Renaissance Re. And they owned the patent on the FSU super ensemble model. You guys are probably have seen that like in Hurricane Center write-ups and so forth, but it's just a forecasting technique that's, uses a combination of all different models together to kind of produce the best forecast in theory. So the technology or the company was built on that technology, and the goal was to sell that technology and also trade off of it. So weather derivatives are a financial means to basically bet on the weather. It can be precipitation, it can be cooling degree days, it can be heating degree days, it can be anything related to weather. It's generally not catastrophic coverage like hurricanes and things. At least that's not what our group does currently, but I'll get more to that in a minute. So Renaissance Re had this technology that was owned by this company. And after I got laid off at Progress Energy, which is where I was in Raleigh, I went to work at the small weather company for a little while and then went back to Progress and then went back to the weather company. We started trading things. So we traded weather derivatives, which are traded just like any other kind of futures, like crude oil or natural gas or something. You can trade that on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Like anybody can trade that if they have enough, money to put up for margin. And then we have, we also eventually got into speculative trading of natural gas and other commodities, and like agriculture and things. So back in 20 plus years ago, the whole data thing was different, right? At INCEP, they would dump out the GFS files, let's say, at 12Z and 0Z, and they would put those things in different places. They had a public location, and then they had a private location where you could pay like $7,500 a year and get a T1 connection into the weather service. So you could pull those files faster than other people. So there were like maybe half a dozen people like us that could get those GFS files really fast. And the reason that matters is during the trading day, like when you have the 12Z GFS come out around noon, like back then, it was limited ensembles, there wasn't 6 euro runs a day. There was 1 euro run a day and so forth. You had a big advantage if you knew those things shifted colder. So you could make bets. You got that data. You could go out and buy natural gas or sell natural gas if it looked warmer. And then by the time everybody else got that information, they would start buying and the price would go up and you could sell it. So that didn't have anything to do with the super ensemble or anything. That was more like a fast reaction kind of thing. So there was a period of time there for a couple of years where you could make a ton of money doing that kind of thing. We worked with somebody that was on the floor of the New York Mercantile Exchange. That was a gas trader in the pits, which is, the actual, where you see people doing all the hand signs and all that kind of stuff, trading. And he had a whole team of folks upstairs that would go and trade stuff based on our weather signals. So we would let him know, say, hey, the GFS is a lot colder, or the hurricane forecast changed. So we started dealing with him in 2004, right before Hurricane Ivan. And during Ivan, the super ensemble model was dead on the track the whole time. It was further west than basically everything. So we thought that it was probably likely going to go into the producing region in the Gulf and, possibly hit Mobile. So that was a good time to buy natural gas. And that trade worked out really well. We made that guy a bunch of money. He made us a bunch of money. And he said, well, we want to do this again next year. And then the next year was the 2005 hurricane season. So you had Katrina, you had Rita, there were some other events like Gustav, which I think was 06, maybe. Can't remember exactly, but the markets just move a lot on that kind of information. So, Ike was another opportunity for trading around that. So in 2006, the reinsurance company took our little weather company and they said, we want to kind of leverage this with a group that is a weather derivative sales group. So what that means is, well, it's more than just sales. That's kind of too loose of a term, I suppose, but like a weather marketing and pricing and sales team. So they brought in another group in 2006 and kind of merged it with our forecasting group. So we ended up, a number of the group, it's 19 years later, and there's several of us that still work together, that have worked together all that time. So there's I'll talk in general terms now about kind of our business. So there's three parts of the business. One is there's a sales group, right, that goes out mostly to energy companies. So to give you an example, let's say that you're a Southern company and that you don't sell as much power and gas if it's warm in Atlanta and Birmingham in the wintertime, right? So you might want to be protected against that kind of thing. So how do you protect yourself against that? Well, you could go out and sell power ahead of time and then hope the power price drops, but that's not really a good idea, because if it's cold, the power prices go way up and you're going to get killed on the other side. Plus they're like so big. I'm taking kind of an extreme example, but you can hedge yourself with the weather. So, and there's a variety of ways to do that. Most people do the heating degree day, the cooling degree day products. So like in the Southern example, in wintertime, they might want to sell heating degree day, what we call swaps, which are basically you establish a level. Let's say that the average in Atlanta is 2120 for the November through March period, let's say, right? And let's say that Southern Company agrees to sell that and our group agrees to buy that. Those sales guys will go out and kind of work with the customer and get what product works the best for that. So they'll buy, or we would buy from Southern those HCDs. So if it's colder than 2120 in Atlanta, we're making money from Southern, but they don't care in that instance because they're selling more gas, to the folks in Atlanta, the folks in, folks in this all over the Southeast. They're selling more power. So that's fine. If it's warmer, they're going to give up something. If it's warmer, they're going to get paid from us, but they're not going to be selling as much product to the consumers. So the weather derivative serves as an offset to that type of thing. And there's all kinds of fancy products like puts and calls that are really kind of out of the scope of this, but they're also able to marry the commodity prices with the weather. We can do that type of product as well. So what that means is, so let's take Dallas Fort Worth in the summertime as an example. So like if you have Span Electric Company in Dallas, and those guys are not very good managers of things, but they know that they want to be protected if it's really hot in Dallas and commodity prices are high. So if it's 103 or hotter in Dallas and power prices are over $250, Span Electric wants something that's going to protect them. So we can sell them a product that triggers on both of those things. The power price has to be above 250 and Dallas has to be above 103. Well, Dallas isn't above 103 all that frequently, right? So the electric company has to know that, well, they're okay and can meet their load if it's 102 or 101. So their load models have to be pretty good with that. So then you could go out into the actual commodity market and buy a $250 power product that protects you if prices that go high that don't have any weather trigger, but that's way more expensive than attaching that weather component trigger also. So it's cheaper for Span Electric to go out and hedge that product with what we call a dual trigger. It's got a weather trigger and it's got a power price trigger. There's also, there's also a pricing group that we have that's called the structuring team. But those are the really smart guys, the quantitative analysts and things, the PhDs in finance and those types of folks. And they're the ones that value things. So how are things valued in our market? Like this is something that's probably interesting, especially with respect to like the climate change world that we live in, I suppose. So like we have to know what normal is because we have to make some kind of assumption on what is an average weather, because that if you don't have any idea what average weather is in a place, you can't price any of our deals. So does that mean that the 10-year average is what we should be using? Is it the 5-year? Is it the 15-year? I mean, because there's no doubt at all the airports that we look at that there's been a warming trend. But it's also, you don't know what's caused the warming trend because it could be, construction around the airport at a certain site. It could be, urbanization. It could be the PDO or ENSO is in a certain phase. So we have to be aware of all that kind of stuff. There's a company called Speedwell that just got bought by Vaisala or Vaisala, however they say it. And that's basically what they do is they provide data for folks and they determine kind of what's normal or at least provide you with the data that helps you with that. So the trending of the data is super important for what we do. You also have the whole volatility angle of the weather. Like, is the weather more volatile than it used to be? Is it less volatile? Because if you make that bet wrong, you're really going to lose a lot of money. So you can't be selling volatility too cheap, and you can't be paying too much for volatility. So there's kind of like a happy medium in there. So the sales guys, which is our origination team, bring those structures in. This pricing guys, which are the structuring team that I mentioned, those guys have the role in pricing up things. I'm on the trading side, and I have to be sure that what we're pricing is consistent with what's out there in the market. Like there's a whole weather market out there that's traded, like, Philadelphia traded today for December at, a certain level. There's all kinds of cities that trade. So they trade at certain levels for reasons, right? Somebody's got a view of what normal is or what a forecast is. But what's really important are teleconnections like ENSO and things, right? So Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a strong El Nino, you don't want to be owning cold weather there, because you're probably going to lose, right? It's a very strong signal that it's warm there. So we have to be aware of that kind of thing, and you're making adjustments all the time with that type of, or with when you're in like a strong INSO thing. There's also things, other teleconnections like the PDO and things that have like a big impact on the pricing. And it's important to get that right, because there's tens of millions of dollars that change hands like on these types of structures. Regularly each year in the weather market, there's like $50 million structures that are placed where people are wanting to be protected against something. And sometimes they're written as insurance products, sometimes they're written as derivative products, where the derivative products are just based off of what the weather parameters are, like whether it was hot or cold. Insurance, you generally have to show a loss. And then on the commodity things, like Winter Storm Uri in 2021 is kind of a good example for Texas, especially because you had power prices that went from $75 before the event to $9,000 after the event. So just 50 megawatts of a power contract for that single week, if you had bought the $75 and held it for 10 days, you would have made $30 million. And, there were people trading hundreds and hundreds of megawatts during that event. You always hear, people like to hear stories about, oh, well, so-and-so made $1 billion on this trade or this kind of thing. So like during Uri, there were people that made more than $1 billion from trading that. And, that was partly weather to blame, but it was also partly ERCOT's kind of management of the system and what they had to do. ERCOT's the Texas power grid operator.
Troy knows them well.
Oh, hell yes.
So and like during the polar vortex years in 2013-14 and 2014-15, there was one hedge fund in particular where they had a meteorologist that was there and they had a weather trader that was there, but they were also allowed to trade power and so forth. And those guys made $150 million like in a week in power in the Eastern US on that. And they both left, and one of them became a Navy SEAL. Believe it or not, he decided that that's what he was going to do, and he went into the Navy. He was an All-American swimmer at Stanford, that guy. And the rumors were that they made into 9 figures on that, and they took their payouts. So things can be very explosive.
May I ask you a quick question? I think you're getting into the meat of stuff that our listeners would love to understand a little bit more deeply. At least selfishly, I know that I would. I want to back up just a centimeter in your amazing story here. So you talked about what it meant to quote unquote own cold weather. And I feel like there's a lot to unpack in all of this. Tell us a little bit about the details of that. So when you're hedging, when you're looking at what the weather futures could look like, this affects the commodities in different ways, right? So what you're looking at is supply and demand for all of those commodities, and then the pricing of it, and you're essentially betting about what that price level will be and hedging like against what the current market rate is and what's forecasted to be. Like tell us a little bit more about what's involved in all of that. Every sentence you're saying, you are so embroiled in this world that I don't even know that you appreciate just how deep your knowledge extends here. Please unpack this for our audience.
All right. So the owning of the cold weather part. So think of heating degree days and cooling degree days, right? Which most people are familiar with probably in this group. It's basically just a deviation from 65 degrees is what a heating degree day or cooling degree day is. So how do you get people to like understand what buying cold weather means? It's just simply a financial contract that is traded on an exchange where you either take the cold side, you're going to get paid, that's owning cold weather, or you take the opposite side, which is owning warm weather. And somebody has to be on either side of that. So it's like buying a stock, right? If you go out and buy one share of IBM stock on the exchange, somebody has to sell that to you. If I go out and buy, one lot, which is a unit of trading, it was like, think of one share of Boston December heating degree days, somebody has to sell that to me. So at some price, I'm willing to pay that. And at some price, they're willing to sell that. So you have to figure out where the market is on that. And there's brokers in the market that broker weather. I mean, are you guys familiar with that show, This Is Us? Right? There's a weather derivative trader.
Tell us more.
There's a weather derivative trader on that show that they make fun of. They have bring your dad to school day, and he talks about his job, and there's a fireman on there, and then this kid brings his dad in there, and he's like, my dad's a weather derivative trader, and everybody laughs and makes fun of him. Well, the reason that guy's in the show is a weather derivative trader, there's a backstory there. One of the guys that's a weather broker for us, he grew up with the guy that created that show, who's pretty famous. Dan Fogelman is his name. He created Cars 2, did the screenplay for Cars 2 and stuff. So he was buddies with the weather broker. So that was his way of making fun of his buddy, was creating the weather trader. So it's kind of a lame job, and my family makes fun of it all the time. It makes fun of me being a meteorologist, but it's very interesting.
But you're laughing all the way to the bank, Tom.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Unless you're on the wrong side.
Well, we had an advertiser on the show that did this.
Yep.
What was the name of the company, Troy?
Oh, well, they weren't they?
They were trading positions.
Well, trading positions on forecast, right?
Yeah, exactly. This
high and low, because it got even Tom down here to Austin, and they had picked Camp Mabry, and it actually, which is an ASOS site, a first order climate site here in Austin.
Yeah.
And they were actually bugging the Weather Service. It got for a while where they were really bugging Weather Service offices about official highs and lows.
Yeah. I mean, I can easily see that happening, because sometimes the Weather Service makes mistakes, like the climate report that comes out, the CLI statement. Okay. So we've had deals.
We can't make errors. It's not possible.
Well, there's a lot. I don't know. There's more things I can go into, but the last ob of the day, right? The last METAR is taken at 10 minutes before midnight or 7 minutes before midnight, right?
Right.
But so they report that 4 group on those observations that shows the Tmax and Tmin for the day, right? But you still have 6 or 7 minutes in there, right, between then and midnight.
You're right.
So if a front's gone through, and what we'll see is sometimes the CLI report or the CF6 that comes out, which is like both of those may say one thing, and I know that wasn't the low because I saw at 11:59 that the low was a degree lower. So that might mean $20,000 or something on a contract.
Well, so that's also, we got the DSM, which is the coated product, John, that comes off and I'm thinking it goes till midnight, but
yes, it does. That's a new thing, Tom. I don't know if you know about the DS. I don't even know what it's daily
summary message. They also have a MSM, which is a monthly at the end of the month on the first. But yeah, it's it cranks out in DSM ATT for Camp Mabry here in Austin. You can see it. Now there's a little manual that goes with it, because you wouldn't be able to tell what the hell it's telling you, but it's just
ChatGPT can decode it.
Yep.
But it's there's mistakes made.
Tom, one thing that one of my friends and one of our colleagues was telling me about was Kalshi, and I may be saying it wrong. I think it's like a public consumer betting site, and he's saying that hundreds of millions of dollars is being bet on simple weather forecasts on that site.
Are we all in the wrong business here? I mean, I'm just wondering about all this money.
Well, I don't think I'm even serious enough as a meteorologist to make money at this, because y'all are talking the edge you have to have is like worrying about things like this 6 minute gap between the report and the top of the hour, and that's the way you have to game these things in order to get the edge you need. But I mean,
Yeah.
that just blew my mind that those sort of dollars were being spent on this sort of thing. There's a lot of
Yeah, the
money to be
Cauchy,
made here.
we actually talked to the Cauchy guy that he's like famous now because he's doing well with the business. But one of our guys talked to him a couple of years ago about the weather products. I haven't even actually looked at what's actually traded on there. I think like a lot of like the trading of weather, like there's people that, hedge funds and so forth that put a lot of resources into hiring teams of PhD meteorologists and climatologists and looking at the teleconnections and things, right? So, there's smarter money out there. I mean, I know I'm a bad forecaster in the 10 to 15 day like everybody else. So what you're looking at is you're looking at the odds of things. You're kind of like, all right, if this GFS verifies, this is the second coldest, 10 to 15 day period for those dates in 40 years. Is that really likely to happen in my mind? Well, I'll go and then look at like these CMWF weeklies. I'll look at other forecast sources. And then you have to have a willing participant on the other side and to get what you think is a good price. Because like, just because you think that something's worth something doesn't mean somebody's willing to sell it there. So you're looking for the opportunities where you think there's good value in something and somebody else has the other side of it. So maybe somebody's trying to hedge like a natural gas position with heating degree days. And they're willing to sell it for way cheaper than they might have been otherwise because they didn't have that natural gas position on. So you try to like take advantage of that type of thing. You take advantage of, somebody else's needs. And, you want to be on the correct side of that. And, I mean, we're trying to help our clients out. So there's like, I want to make sure there's a clear distinction. Like we have a whole client side of business. And then we have opportunities to deploy capital in the traded market also. So when we show a client a price that's our customer, they may think, man, that's too expensive. And we're like, okay, or they may get it cheaper from a competitor. Like we're not, they might see a dozen numbers or something. So you already have low odds to win something conceivably with the client. It just depends on what the product is. And like if there's really high limits on a product, there's, if you're writing $100 million deal, there's a lot less people that can do that deal than if you're writing a $500,000 deal or something. So, things change with respect to that. And you also want to have a diversified portfolio. Like you don't want to keep buying Atlanta, even if you think it's a great price and you put $50 million of risk on in Atlanta, let's say, and you don't have anything else on. Like that's not very good from a risk management standpoint. So, we have a team in Zurich that writes a lot of European risk. We write the US risk here. We also write Australia risk out of here. So you want to be geographically diversified between different regions and also different time scales. So, you would much rather write like a 5-month deal than, a 1-week deal or something, just because probabilistically, depending on what the product is, you're probably going to have a better chance to make money over a longer term. But a lot of it's driven by what the clients think. And it's taken years to kind of educate clients. I mean, it might be you talk to a client the first time, our sales guys will talk to them, and you don't close a deal with them for 2 years. And it's kind of like a hand-holding process, and people have to get comfortable with it, right? I mean, it's just like Kim's question on, okay, what does it mean to buy cold? Like you talk to energy companies and the first time about weather stuff, and they're like, what does it mean to buy cold, right? And they know what HDDs are or whatever, but they might not be familiar with the weather product. So, and you never know what's going to come along. I mean, there's all kinds of deals that show up in a given week. That's when I sit down in the morning, I know a couple of things I have to do each day, and then You don't know what's going to happen after that. And you have to write contracts on these deals. So, the language has to be very specific. You don't want some huge deal where it, the contract language is bad and then there's an argument, or, and you have to be very tight with the language on the observations and like where you're getting them and when you're getting them. And are you getting them from the Weather Service, or are you getting them from whatever, WSI, or, that type of thing. So it's there's a lot of things.
All right, let's talk about the climate obs at the end of the day. All right. So it's let's say your forecast, and I don't know what the proper term is, the bet that it will not go below 20 degrees for that day.
Yeah.
And the climate let's use Troy at Austin Airport. It was 20 at 11:55 at night.
Mm-hmm.
But in the DSM at 11:58, it went to 19.
Yeah.
Would you actually call the Austin office the next day or the day after and say, I want to talk to you about this low? I mean, how involved do you get? I mean, it almost seems like DraftKings for weather.
Yeah. So first of all, it's very rare to call where there's a problem with the observation. So generally, the first thing that we would do is call our data provider, Speedwell/Visala, and say, hey, what would you guys get for the low? Was it 19 or 20? Because we're seeing a discrepancy in this. So they may be the ones that call. They may be the ones that call like the NWS and talk to the Met Tech and or the OPL or whatever they're the main guys called now.
Whoever's left at the office, yes.
Yeah, and so
we've lost 20% of our whole staff since you left. By the way, we've been decimated. Okay, we're 20% down.
So, the contractual language is very specific on most deals. It's going to say whatever NCEI reports, and then there's a 90-day true-up period because something may have been wrong, right? And you can't get it ironed out like in the 5 days after the month ends, kind of thing. We've never had a situation ever with a client where you get into some kind of dispute that the ob is different than what we say it is or what people say it is. There may be a discussion at some point, and I'm very upfront that say, look, the hourly said this, and then the Climo report is saying this, and the Climo report can't be right given what these hourlies are. So we've got to do further checking, and the client's going to understand that. I mean, it happens 3 or 4 times a year. But you hope that the contractual language is, tight enough for that. You also have the issue of what happens if like a nuclear bomb, takes out one of the stations. Like, what are you doing for backup language, right? We have whatever. If one of the airports in Austin gets taken out, okay, you have a backup, but the backup runs hotter or colder than the original site. So you have language in there that you adjust it. Well, I mean, you have.
Troy knows.
Have you seen Raleigh? Raleigh's probably the most notorious one in the U.S.
Well, Tom, something else too is, and I'm kind of working on something now, and we'll talk about it later more. But John, you've seen this before, and I know James and Bill, you all have. But there are AWAS vendors in this country that don't know how to what hour to program that 4 group. I've seen the 4 group down here in Austin, around Austin, some of the smaller AWAS is coming out at 0Z instead of 0 local time.
Yeah.
And so there are so many different AWAS providers that they don't know how to program their AWASs correctly. That's bottom line. And it's a big issue with some of this stuff. And
well, they're changing, along those lines too. They've changed out the temperature sensors in a number of sites nationally at major airports, right? So, like Speedwell monitors that closely. So I haven't really talked about this, but like they go out and monitor how a station is performing relative to all the sites in the area. So it's looking at Atlanta Hartsfield versus, Marietta and all these sites around the area. And if it gets out of tolerance, they're going to alert you and say, hey, it looks like it's moved a degree warmer. And then they'll go back and say, oh, well, we noticed there's construction. They're building a hangar next to the ASOS, or they replaced the fan in it. There's all kinds of like crazy stuff that happens.
All it takes is an aspirating fan and one of these ASOSs to go out, right, John? I mean, if it goes out and you're not ventilating that temperature humidity sensor, right there, and that's something I'm Camp Mabry. I've had calls from the weather services. Do you mind going out and just see if you hear the fan? Go out and just see, if you hear the fan.
Yeah, I could just say this, Tom, at least in Kentucky, we had for the climate, because God forbid the climate goes out wrong, James Spann. People have aneurysms. We're in the middle of a tornado warning. We need to know the high in Montgomery. If I don't know that high, I'm going to jump off a bridge.
I see why now.
We come up with backups for each one, how we'll use this, whether it's a mesonet or whatever. We'll figure out something to put some number out, because I don't want James to be upset about the Montgomery high. Okay.
You're better than that, John, than some people, because I know places where there are not good backups. I could name some places right now where we have ASOSs and we don't have good backups, which can't say much about it because we're short-staffed in the weather service, and especially with climate focal points and that sort of thing in local offices. But we need backups for these ASOS sites, first order anyway.
Well, one of the ASOS techs in Alaska burned down the temporary housing at McGrath, so you have to be careful.
Ask who that was. I might have known him. So
I forgot all about that. That's a doozy.
I'm afraid. I want to know that story.
Right? Does this job make you go insane? Like, what happened?
Yeah. Oh, come on, John. Someone.
You only know a little bit. I just heard a rumor. Tom knows it. I don't know the whole story.
Well, I know that same guy came in the temporary housing in Nome that was attached to my housing, and a summer intern from Fairbanks was sleeping in the bed in there, and that guy came in there stinking drunk and started screaming at that kid like at the top of his lungs in the middle of the night, and the kid had no idea what was going on. But yeah, that was the same guy that burned it down.
Okay.
Oh boy.
But I've seen the same stuff though up in Barrow. There's contract housing up there too that they had for the employees back when the WSO was open. Yeah.
Well, we had, I don't know, this is a family show, but the temporary housing, the temporary housing that was attached to, like, there was a dual entrance between my apartment and the temporary quarters, and the guys from the Coast Guard in Port Clarence would use that housing, and our and our washing machine is between there, and something that would indicate that something shouldn't have been going on there was in the trash in there. And a few days later, the janitor in our building goes, "Are there transient guys with the Coast Guard that stay up there at the FAA housing?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "We have Coast Guard guys every once in a while come through there." He goes, "Well, one of those guys is sleeping with my friend's wife." So, like, all I could think of, I was going to get misidentified and shot, coming out of that door at some point.
Wow.
So, So yeah,
you learn a lot on this show.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom. Hey, so Tom, let's go a little backwards to get the show back on the ground. What is the strangest thing that happened on Alaskan Weather TV to you, or the guy who's Monday through Friday? What is the one that will blow James Spann away? What's the story? What's the weirdest thing?
Man, on the Alaska Weather Show,
I just hate that it's gone away.
Yeah,
there's more stories at WAOB TV in Albany, Georgia than there were at the.
Well, let's hear some of those.
Yeah,
one of those.
What were you making? You said you're making $7 an hour. What was your pay?
$7.93 an hour. So my first weekend there, I worked 4 hours. I came in and made the graphics, did 2 hours for the 6 News and 2 hours for the 11 news, and I put 4 hours on the time card, and I got my first paycheck, and it was twice that amount of money. And I went and told the news director, I said, well, you paid me for, working 8 hours both of those days. I only worked 4 hours each of the days. He's like, son, you got to claim the 8 hours. Sometimes you're going to be in here for severe weather and things. So I felt okay after that. So like being in South Georgia was, it was interesting, particularly on the news photography side. You got to see some crazy things that happened in the community. I mean, there was a lot of racial tension there in the town, and it was the first time that an African American majority was on the city council there, like ever in Albany's history when I was there. So there was, I filmed a lot of like of those meetings and things, and there were fights and things that were, that was pretty remarkable to me to see that all that was still going on there. I'll tell you, in terms of the stupidest things that I ever did, it was during the O.J. Simpson trial, and we had to move video from the NBC national feed to the little tapes, the beta tapes or whatever that they took back, and they took the whole stack of them back there and all that. And some reporter had left the microphone up in the edit bay when I was laying that audio or that tape. So whatever audio I was saying was getting moved over the NBC national reporter talking about the O.J. Simpson trial, and the edit bay kept malfunctioning and it kept beeping, and I was yelling, I don't understand this. This is not working. Fortunately, I didn't curse, but I was yelling at the top of my lungs because we were under a time crunch, right? And that audio all got laid down on that tape. So when they went and took it back, I wasn't doing the weather that night, but I walked through the news when they were playing. I walked through the studio, and the anchor, like it was during a break, he goes, "Way to go, Paler." All that went out over the air, and I still have the air check from that. I still have the air check from that on VHS tape. So, and like Christina Abernathy worked there at the time, that used to be on the Weather Channel, for years. And I remember I played some joke on her. It was a perfectly clear night, and I printed out some tornado warning and changed the date and like put it on the computer in the weather center. And I kind of walked by, and you should have seen her face when she was reading that. She was like, she thought it was real. I didn't let it go as far where she was going to go, but it was like a severe clear night. So like nothing was going to happen on that. And I got pulled over for speeding, for bringing a tape back. It was, Nancy Grace, that's the famous attorney now.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was whatever, assistant district attorney or something, and was prosecuting a cop that allegedly killed his wife in a bathtub at their house. And the cop ended up getting acquitted, but I had to get that video back to the station very quickly. And it was right before I was leaving to Alaska, and I got pulled over going like 74 and a 55 or something. And the cop goes, why were you speeding? I said, I got to get this tape back, for the 6 o'clock news. And he looks at his watch, and it's like 4:15. So he wasn't really buying that, but I was like, I'm an hour away from, I'm an hour away from the station, and I got to get this tape back, and I got to edit it. I didn't tell him that, and I might put audio over that inadvertently.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Alaska show was pretty tame.
Did he give you the ticket, or did he let you go?
Yeah, no, he gave me the ticket. It was only a $35 fine. Yeah. And so that was fine. The news director did not offer to pay it. I can tell you that when I told him.
Yeah.
So,
well, these are stories though, Tom, that frankly, looking at everyone on this panel right now, are not some of the worst things I've heard come out of TV stations before. So consider yourself.
We all have some similarities with a lot of them, Tom. Thank you for sharing them.
They did try to get a cameraman fired. They were trying to blame him, and that was another race related thing, that the sportscaster at the time got in an argument with him, and he was trying to get the kid fired, and it was completely ridiculous. Yeah, it was you saw a lot of stuff that doesn't go out over the air, let's just say, as you all know.
Well, Tom, I had 40 questions prepared for tonight. I asked you the first one, and I think you answered at least 37 of the
Yeah,
remaining
you did.
39. So I don't know whether you had access to my computer or whether maybe having ESP is really a good thing for being a trader. But you did really, really well there all by yourself. I didn't even have to prompt you. I think you only left one thing out. Something happened on a Coast Guard cutter, and maybe I blacked out during that time, or if you answered it. But tell us about the experience on a Coast Guard cutter in the Bering Sea. I think I missed
Yeah.
that.
So,
Oh, wow.
so like when I was in Anchorage, that we had opportunities to do familiarization floats and flights. So you get to fly in a cockpit of a plane or get to go out on a boat or whatever. And the Coast Guard said, "Hey, you want to have somebody come out and go out with us for a couple of weeks?" And they asked me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And it was in April, and it was the Coast Guard cutter Storis, which has been decommissioned since as an icebreaker, but it was the oldest. It was one of the oldest cutters, I think. It was like a 230-foot boat with a rounded hull, so it really bobbed a lot in the 20-foot seas we were in. Um, we got to see them board boats. Boarding fishing vessels, looking for drugs. They did a lot of practicing with the machine gun and so forth. I know that when I was in Nome, the show Deadliest Catch, like some of those boats were sending us ship reports back in the mid 90s, like the Northwestern, which was the most famous boat on that show. They would send in ship reports. We'd talk to them on the radio all the time. And then whatever, 20 years later, it's like, holy smoke, it's the same boat, So the managers in the Anchorage office, after I came back from that, were like, "I can't believe you went on that thing. I never would have gone on that boat for that long. It must have been awful." But it was really cool, other than being seasick a lot, taking a lot of seasick drugs.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for all of the amazing wealth of stories and insights you've
Absolutely.
shared. I think I have the honor of the last question before we pass you off to Span for the hardest questions of the show. But I have to know. You mentioned the whole race to beat the GFS and get that edge for all of the commodities trading and so on. And I am just so curious because he's spoken about this pretty publicly. Did you ever encounter the current NOAA administrator, Neil Jacobs, in all of that Panasonic when he worked there? They had a big outfit that was looking to quote unquote beat the GFS model and inform trading in different respects. Was just curious if you guys had crossed paths.
So no, I hadn't. I did talk to some Panasonic people, but like years and years ago, and I do remember them trying to sell that. And that's it's still a thing now, right? I mean, people still look. Everybody gets it at the same speed now. Some people try to predict what it's going to be ahead of time, but I mean, every day I watch the 12C come in. I don't do anything when it comes in anymore. It's not like you have some kind of edge, you're going to buy gas or something, but you got to be aware of like the latest stuff and how stuff has changed, from the prior night. So,
Hey, Tom, let's say somebody wants to do what you're doing for a living. What's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen?
Well, what I do is a lot better than shift work, I would say. I mean, the best thing that can happen, I suppose, the reason people do it is you can get paid a lot of money. I mean, a place that I work now, you have more stability than at a hedge fund, right? But if you were at a hedge fund and you go out and, bet big, you might have a pay structure that you get to take home 20% of whatever you make. So if you make 10 million trading in a year, you're taking home 2 million. Places like Munich Re aren't, they're not set up like that. And there's a whole kind of gamut of whole range, I guess, of the compensation versus safety and so forth. Best thing is, I suppose, you can make a lot of money. Worst thing is, you can get fired pretty easy and you can screw something up. There's so many ways to screw something up modeling something. We have what's called a 4I process, right? Where you have to check it and then somebody else has to check it. And, errors are caught like a lot that way. So, you can't be very imprecise. My wife tells me that she's like, I wish you were as concerned about being precise with stuff around the house as you are with your job. So, so I hear about that, I suppose.
So how does one more? We got to take a break. How does AI fit into what you do every day?
Yeah.
So AI is taking well, first of all, from the weather side, there are AI weather models, right? That part of our subscription service to Commodity Weather Group, they provide that through their modeling pages. But more generally, what I see is that it's going to be taking jobs away from particularly on lower level people. Like if you're right out of school, you might have had an intern that's just started with you do the grunt work on something, like say, hey, can you tell me, just today somebody wanted to know how much of an impact rooftop solar power had in New South Wales, Australia. Like how many megawatts is it taking off of the load on the system? And in the olden days, you would say, hey, intern or young person working here, can you go research this? And they would mess around on the internet and find something. Like now you put that in ChatGPT and it comes back really quickly. Now you got to be careful, right? And check stuff, but it's going to be taking more and more of a role, I think. I've got 4 kids. I wish they would all be plumbers or electricians, I think, at this point, because those jobs are not going to be ones that are going to get replaced by it.
Yep. Amen.
That's true. All right. Well, let's pause for a second. We got to hear from Tony Rice. By the way, Jen is out this week, so we're going to hear from Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We're going to come back with the email segment, picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Wednesday's full moon will be a supermoon, the second of 4 in a row. Now, several meteorologists have asked about this being the brightest supermoon of 2025. And yes, it will be the brightest of 2025 and the brightest of those 4 extending into January of 2026. Technically, that is. Why the brightest? Simply because it's the closest. Brightness of a celestial or really any object is determined by the inverse square law. That is, brightness is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. Not only are things that are farther away dimmer, that's the inverse part, they get much dimmer much faster the farther away they get. That's the squared part. So the moon will be 224,600 miles away from Earth when it turns full Wednesday morning. And that's about 27,000 miles closer than last month's supermoon, thus brighter. Now, December's supermoon will be technically further away and thus technically dimmer. But practically, it's going to be about the same brightness as this week's November supermoon. Lunar phases aren't day-long events. They're instantaneous. The moon is only full for a moment and immediately begins to cast a waning shadow on its right side, if just a fraction. November's brightest supermoon turns full a few hours after sunrise. December's around sunset, but only 150 miles further away than November's. So, the surface of this week's November supermoon will be about 0.5% less illuminated when most people are actually looking at it after sunset. Getting wrapped up in labels like biggest and brightest doesn't make much sense when you consider there's more than one parameter here. Elsewhere in the sky, an interstellar visitor comet, 3I Atlas, passed perihelion, or the closest point in its path to the sun, on October 29th. It's lost in the sun's glare right now for most observers, but not the instruments aboard Stereo, SOHO, and GOES 19, each of which is tasked with monitoring the sun for space weather. Each has also observed Comet Atlas brightening. That's good news for comet watchers because not only does this indicate that it survived its pass by the sun, it will be easier to spot from Earth soon. And its tail is beginning to glow blue. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
So even though Jen is out this week, we still have some substitute email officers.
Okay, folks. So I want to thank Steve Holmes, who wrote in and let the WeatherBrains staff know about Australia and severe weather. He's like a Ryan Hall, max velocity. His name is Cyclones Zero Z. He is a version of Max and Ryan. That was one. We got a nice note from AJ Dome about the Kentucky Mesonet show we had last week. I don't know if you saw that, Tom. It was all about the Mesonet and Climate group in Kentucky. He let us know about the Kansas State Mesonet now is up to 93 stations in the Sunflower State. How about them apples? And last but not least, we have a question for Troy Kimmel. This comes from Brandon McKenzie, lives in Bremen, Georgia, originally from Vidalia, and this is where his family is. Local airport has an AWAS station, Troy, in the cooler months. And on clear nights, the sensor reads 5 to 8 degrees warmer than surrounding areas. This has been the trend for decades. Not good. The temperature appears accurate during the day, regardless of weather, and at night and in the summer and the cooler months if skies are cloudy. However, as the clear skies and temperatures drop, the sensor registers warm. Where do we reach out to report this? I've reported to the NWS. I don't get a response. Please advise. Troy?
Well, I checked it, and Brandon and I actually talked via email a little earlier today, and kind of went in on this through the hazards website, John, and where you can see a bunch of OBS. The problem with that is we start getting to some of the citizens' weather observing programs, and I don't know where those sensors are. I do know where the airport sensors are technically, or where their FAA sites them. But folks, you're going to see that really no matter where you go. It has to do with location, location, location. Now, FAA and the Weather Service agree that those temperature sensors should be about 5 feet off the ground. But it's just like here in Austin, occasionally we get people saying, well, the site out at Bergstrom is too cool. It's outside the city as well. Well, yeah, because it's sitting on the banks of the Onion Creek watershed. It's in a drainage area. And it's always been there since the U.S. Air Force. The period of record for that station was the early 40s. And it's always been that way at that site. So we know that. And the Camp Mabry site was maintained with an ASOS after the WSO closed in the mid-90s, mainly because Robert Miller Airport was in the urban heat island of the city. And that site if we were going to maintain that first order climate site, it had to be within what, John, 100 feet or 100 feet and 5 miles had to be, I think, 5 miles. And that's why we went over to Camp Mabry, because it's in the urban heat island, because the site's always generally been there in the city. So it's location, location, location. Brandon, I looked at Vidalia, Georgia. It's an AWAS. There's University of Georgia, some temperature sites around those, and they've been essentially the same, like he said, all day long today. But tonight, and again, we're recording this on Monday night, the 3rd of November, and as I look at it live right now, Vidalia Airport's 54. Down the road at Santa Claus, Georgia, it's 55, just a couple of miles away. That's University of Georgia site. So it's not that much different, but I also don't know necessarily the cloud situation there, right? It's showing clear at the airport. So it just really depends. But, a lot of people think that just because the temperature is different, what you have at your house, that there's something wrong with that thermometer. And let me tell you, the Weather Service, especially for their ASOSs, they're cited pretty carefully. They try to cite those as carefully as they can. So,
well, if we have a weather deal come in from Vidalia tomorrow, I'm going to know.
Okay.
So, hey, thanks, Troy, and thanks to all the emails that have come in. And if you have an email, send it into the email segment to emails@weatherbrains.com. And especially for international, if you're from anywhere outside the United States, send me as a note, and I will respond.
He will respond. So, and again, the tropics are quiet. Anybody have any thoughts on Melissa in Jamaica? From the physical science, social science end?
I don't think we have any idea. I mean, we do because of pictures that we've seen, but I just don't think we have any idea what a humanitarian disaster has occurred there. And you've got to feel so sorry for those people.
Yeah, we need to get Josh Morgerman on the show here. He was there for the landfall, and he's still there today, and he experienced the whole thing. Not in Kingston, but on that west end of the island where the damage was so severe.
He was right in there, James, where that 30-mile buzzsaw went through there. But the pictures, I don't believe I don't think we have any full idea at this point about. Yeah. And the death toll is up to what on the island now? Do you know, Kim, or?
I don't know offhand, but I am concerned about early reporting of fatality counts. It's going to be really poor in especially in situations like this. But I mean, even in our own country, how long did it take us to know the real tally for the Texas Hill Country
No,
floods?
it took us that
These things are
130
very
took
fraught.
us it took us a month. I mean,
Yes.
basically.
I was really disappointed to see, honestly, that there was media reporting early on of like low fatality counts, because I think that that in people's minds meant, oh, well, this wasn't really a big disaster. But what was going on was it was such a big disaster that they had no idea. And there hadn't been good communication with some of the affected places. There hadn't been any meaningful, efforts undertaken to put together the fatality counts, corroborate them, because there's multiple kinds of accounting that go on, and sometimes double counting that needs to get siphoned out, and all sorts of issues. And
Well, Kim,
yeah,
something else too. I mean, Kerrville is a well developed technologically compared to this place in Jamaica, which is not going to be, and that's why I fear that we're going to hear the news turn a lot worse, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think if especially we're getting into the phase of it's not even just the immediate fatalities, but the secondary fatalities, the next wave that occurs when you have all the disruption to the critical infrastructure and everything else that goes on. And I'll note that it's not just Jamaica, but Haiti and Cuba that were really badly affected. And I've felt very. I mean, it's just a suspicion, of course, but I felt that the reporting of fatalities out of Haiti have been pretty likely to be pretty conservative, also. So I think we're hearing some things, but I just like you, Troy, you said that, and I just felt the exact same way. I think that we're not getting a lot because there's not a lot to be shared yet. They're working on trying to save as many people as they can right now, not focusing on reporting to the external world.
Anybody that James or whoever, if we can get Josh, I would love to hear that personal account, because his story, I was terrified when I heard that he was going to stay there that night, as bad as we knew that it was.
I think that's his sixth Category 5.
Yeah.
The one thing that's interesting, James, you asked about science. If you look at the satellite that does the land cover, sea cover, before and after, it's what we talked about, James, 1 week ago, right? 1 week ago, we talked about 13 foot of storm surge. And all you do is get brown. I mean, it goes from a green, lush vegetation. It's heartbreaking, Kim. It makes me sick. And now it looks like a desert. It's just mud, brown.
Yeah, and we'll find out more in coming days and weeks. But yeah, we'll try and get Josh on the show, because we need somebody that experienced it, and he certainly did. And this is not his first rodeo. What was that horrible hurricane in the Bahamas that he was in? Goodness, we didn't hear from him for days.
Dorian?
Yeah, Dorian.
Yeah.
Didn't he, or am I got my people screwed up? Didn't he go to Asia not too long ago as well, Southeast Asia? Or
yes.
There were other.
Yes.
Yes, he did. He went.
Yes.
He went out there in one of the typhoons.
He does. He's an interesting guy. He throws at this big party every year. In early June at his hurricane house in coastal Mississippi, and I've committed to going this year. I told Josh I will be there. I will make it happen this year. So
can I be your
we'll get him on the yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. But we'll get him on the show. So let's move on to Picks of the Week. This is where everybody's going to share something that is weather related, something that is interesting, that is cool. So let's go to James Adelot. He's always got the 9 o'clock news coming up here, so we'll get him in and out. So James, what is your Pick of the Week?
Yeah, I kind of stole one from Troy's backyard. Hail in Texas was that Saturday, I think, Troy?
Yeah, it's Friday night, Saturday. Yeah, Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a humongous hail, mostly south of San Antonio and Corpus Christi, right?
Yeah, Seguin and I-10 south to east of Corpus Christi. Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I mean, we're
quite
talking about
unusual.
Wind shields knocked out and this sort of thing.
And again, all these picks will be up in the website, weatherbrains.com. So, John Gordon, what is your pick of the week, sir?
Yes, sir. So, Ben Knoll, works for the Washington Post. He's got a really cool loop on water vapor. of the integrated water vapor transport for 2024. So Kim and I have been chatting a lot about all these flash floods. Years ago, there was a flash flood in Big Thompson, Rapid City, Shady Side. They'd be very isolated. They're not isolated anymore because we have a 1% global temperature rise in the last 15 years. You're getting more flash floods. And this loop is mind-blowing to see the huge increase in moistures across the globe. And the pick next week, Eagle, is this the Edmund Fitzgerald Show. 50 years. We're having the Fitzgeralds. James is going to sing for you next week.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Goodness gracious. Gordon Lightfoot. That just, it's an incredible song, incredible story, but that's outstanding. All right, Troy Kimmel, what is your pick of the week?
Surprise here. This is going to be off of our group text chat, but you may have heard today and approached this with caution, and I did as well initially. And I know James in Tulsa, we had talked about it, but apparently yesterday, somehow, somewhere, the Atlanta weather observation from Hartsfield Airport had a comment in it that was placed that had more to do with politics than it had anything else. And some people began immediately to bring this up to the FAA to get some response from them. And I will tell you that Secretary Sean Duffy actually in social media tonight responded to this. I think it's interesting. And it was nothing obscene. It was just a bad choice of words, something that should never be in a weather observation in Atlanta at about 10 or 11 o'clock yesterday. But they looked into it. And what worries me is they say that apparently that was put in there not by the weather observer, but someone put that comment in the process of it being transferred from the contract weather office in Atlanta to what I'll call the Naden interface, or basically the interface where all the data goes in to Washington. And so it's interesting, interesting response from Secretary Sean Duffy tonight from DOT. They are looking at it. They have a picture of actually the ASOS screen that shows that the observation remark was not in there, but somehow it was apparently placed in there. Now, my question is, did someone outside all of this place it in a picture and place it in social media? And it had nothing to do with the ASOS. In other words, it was basically AI stuff. But I think it was very interesting. It elicited a lot of response early this morning, late yesterday and early this morning. And I'm glad to see Sean Duffy respond to it.
Yeah, very bizarre story. But again, we'll put the link up on weatherbrains.com. You can take a look at that. Okay, Kim, what's your pick of the week this week?
Yeah, my pick of the week is an article about a new project. It looks like at Ted Fujita's own University of Chicago, but a different part of the university. This is at the public health part, where it looks like they are examining the challenges of counting fatalities in disasters and trying to improve the way that that is done. I thought that was really an interesting confluence of things. You can look that up. My pick of the week.
Excellent. All these will be up on weatherbrains.com. And mine is the Josh Morgerman Facebook page. If you're not following him, you can see his content from Jamaica. And again, this is not AI. Most of the stuff you've seen on TikTok and the social platforms coming out of there, it's not real. It's generated by AI. His material is there. He's on the ground. But again, his Facebook page will be my pick of the week. Tom, we have stalled long enough, and I know that you, sir, have an interesting pick of the week for us. So go. The floor belongs to you.
So, most interesting thing to me right now is the record negative IOD, the Indian Ocean dipole right now. That's kind of a highly unusual thing that's going on in the weather world right now. It generally means very wet in Southeast Australia, but it also disrupts the wave train based on where the convection's setting up. And I'm hopeful that it's the reason that the ECMWF weeklies are turning things very cold in the northern half of the U.S. toward the end of November. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. That's unusual, I would say.
It's all tied together. It's all teleconnections. You got that right. All right, Bill Murray, what you got for us? Go.
Yeah, James, I'm going to take the foghorn since nobody else took the foghorn tonight.
Oh, ho, ho, ho.
Test out your soundboard reflexes over there, James.
There you go.
He didn't have the soundboard ready. I can't believe it. He
No,
was
wait, no, I was
expecting a
playing it. You
particular.
just didn't.
Oh,
You
I
just
just
didn't
didn't
hear
hear
it.
it. Okay. All right.
No,
Good.
no,
All
no.
right. Yeah.
Our audio listeners heard it. Yes.
Good. Yeah. The next 2 weeks, James, and one has already been alluded to. John Gordon is in charge of the next 2 weeks. I am so excited that Edmund Fitzgerald, one of the most amazing weather history events in American weather history, is next week. And so that's going to be an incredible show. And then our old friend Jeff Medlin, John has arranged for him to come on and talk about the Coastal Weather Center with some good friends. And one of the newest NWA Digital Seal recipients, Nicholas Dunn, is going to be the guest panelist that night. So, and then I'm going to get Josh Morgan right after that as soon as he gets free. I'm sure he's doing a lot of humanitarian work in Jamaica. Just amazing. I'm sure, we still got to validate that recon drop zone, but we may have a 219 knot 200 gust in that hurricane the morning of the 28th that I think may be the highest ever observed on Earth. So that's pretty amazing. So, and that was a well forecast storm. I mean, I can remember being 10 days out and seeing the signals for that, when I was doing the weather, 10 days out
Awesome.
on that. So it really was. But that's all I've got, James. At this point, we got a lot of work to do over here in the guest booking office.
GBO. Hey, Tom, anything else you need to plug on the show here? This is your plug chance. So go.
I don't know. I'm just reading through the meeting chat here that you guys have been blasting that I didn't look at for the last hour. And
we're glad you weren't
very,
watching in real
very
time.
disturbing. Very disturbing. Yes.
And it
I'm
always
trying to
is.
get my head. Trying to get my head
Our
around all this.
apologies.
Yeah, we're sorry.
We were
Especially
just
me.
amazed at the Kreskin-like job you were doing with my questions, Tom.
It's gonna take me a long time to screenshot all this.
Yeah. Boy, there's so many show titles here. Goodness gracious. So any social media accounts, anything, Tom, you need to plug here?
No, I got an Instagram account, but I've never posted anything. And I just look at Facebook for reading things and not posting things. So I'm useless in that regard.
like
Smart
Neil
man.
Jacobs, he did very smart, very smart.
Absolutely.
So if you're new here, WeatherBrains is typically on the air Monday nights at 7:00 Central, 8:00 Eastern. YouTube.com/WeatherBrains. That's the video version. We know that most of you listen. If you watch, if you listen, thank you. We're glad you're here. If you want to get in touch with us, have a question about tonight's show, some feedback, let us hear from you. The email address is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless.
Thanks for a fun show,
great
Tom.
show.
Thanks,
That was
Tom.
fun,
That was
Tom.
great.
This was good.
We've got you on speed dial for future episodes.
Yeah, I'll be glad to come on whenever. So I saw the Ted Fathauer climate records comment, John, that you put out there.
Yeah, we didn't even get back to that question.
Yeah. What a great. That's a great story. I wish I'd seen
That's
that.
the
earlier.
wildest story of any MIC in the country. That story right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. So did you know Laura Fergione at all?
Oh yeah, she's been on the show before.
Yeah, so I rented a room from her for a period of time in Alaska. I'm good friends with her. I still talk to her all the time.